Good morning, Atlanta. My name is Vincubus, and this is TheAltPath. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new, welcome back. Oof, this hat's a little big, but we press on. And today on HWITT, it's time for a review of this Team Cherry Metroidvania classic, Hollow Knight. Yeah, since we're gonna skong in just a few hours, this felt appropriate. Hollow Knight needs no introduction, in no small part because of its sequel and the mythos surrounding it. And while the fandom's unanimous animosity has been levied against them in countless ways,
there are slopes in Silksong! This is why it took so long!
As someone who went in a skeptic, they have pretty damn good taste, hence the yellow flannel hat. It's one of the most acclaimed indie titles ever released, to the point where the term Metroidvania of old has been more or less supplanted for the new generation by simply games that are like Hollow Knight. It's about as close to a genre-defining game as you can get 30 years into gaming as a medium, which is why I think OG Hollow Knight deserves a solid 9. And here's why I think that. Everything you do, it does better. Movement feels great, the areas are fun to explore, the way your moveset expands feels natural but also exciting. And the constant plate spinning of allocating your soul between various attacks, heals, and charms is about as thrilling of an RTS as I've ever played. Even if because of the difficulty, I tend to heal pretty much exclusively. And while the soundtrack is not really my cup of tea, I rarely play games with the sound on anyway. The OST is very highly regarded, so I'm not going to count that against its score here. But of course, what's mood without mood setting? The world is dense, colorful, lived in, it keeps to a theme, and it is gorgeously drawn. I love how the game strictly adheres to such narrow color palettes. It makes every area feel like a completely unique biome. And what's more, the amount of detail they managed to pack in despite the restrictions would make some of the most colorful games I've ever played blush. And make no mistake, for all that aesthetic beauty, the world is also functionally dense. Between the nails, the mask shards, the vessel fragments, the grubs, the charms, the charm notches, and plenty more things too. There is no shortage of stuff to find. Circling back a few points though, another reason why those color palettes being narrow is such a great thing is when this weird yucky orange stuff starts creeping through everywhere, you can feel surprisingly violated by its presence. Which brings me to a slight bump in the road for me. I love a good Hollow Knight lore video. I love how dense and how enormous the timeline is. I love how the player character's role is revealed in that and what it stands for, and it leaves me quite excited for Skong's contributions to the wider Hollow Knight mythos. I just can't really stand the way it's presented. All of these characters talking in a higher-than-thou medieval way at you and not to you does go a decent ways, making the world feel especially alien and above you. But that can't completely strike from the record that I did find a lot of the ways this very interesting story was told to me to be fairly unpleasant. But speaking in broad strokes about that lore, if the lore of Hollow Knight did teach me anything, it's that diplomacy solves nothing in Hollow Nest. In fact, the player character's method tends to be a lot more effective at getting things done. That method being hitting fuckers with sticks. Dude, when it comes to the shit that matters, this game just understands. Something in the way? Hit it with a stick. Didn't work? You were probably hitting the wrong thing. Or even more likely, just using the wrong stick. And if all else fails, practice. If your run-through is anything like mine, you're probably going to hit a couple of roadblocks. No! And while a lot of those are excusable by what's known in the industry as a, skill issue, Hollow Knight is far from free of horrible bosses and annoying enemies whose inclusion is just so mind-boggling because everything else about the game is goddamn flawless. But because these fights are hard, you get stuck there for a long time. And again, a lot of the time, the antidote is just get good. But sometimes I do find myself wondering, why are there fucking 6 of these? Why does Quirrell spend so much time just drinking in the scenery? Or here's a good one, why are both of those fights on fucking main path? Yes, I'm having to fight to cherry pick bad moments, but Uwu took me an hour and a half and fucking kill me. Although like I alluded to, there's plenty of optional stuff in Hollow Knight, and all of it is incredible, and this optional content was further magnified by several post-release patches, Skong famously having been supposed to be one of those until it got wildly out of hand. And despite all these tendrils going in different directions, the game ultimately funnels you from the surface world down, and so tunneling does feel really exciting. Even if you're not really paying much attention to the story like I wasn't, the sensation of getting closer and closer to some big buried secret does keep you excited. And totally not a transition from that, the shade. I think in concept it's cool, but I'm always going to get pissed off at a game where if you die, you have to recollect your shit or it's gone forever. Objectively, it's Objectively, it's fine enough design, but me personally, I think I lost more money than I spent because you have so much cash, and there's only like 3 places you can put it, and it pisses me off.
No, no! I just lost so much money!
What happened?
But that's Hollow Knight. Like, no less than 80 hours of content if you play as slow as I do, all of which is completely thrilling save for like the off 2 hours that I just mentioned in front of you. As far as games... Do you mind? As far as games go that have more or less become my project, it's hard to think of one that I wasn't as laser dialed into as Hollow Knight. Usually if a game takes more than like 3 sessions, I wind up doing it over the course of a year. But Hollow Knight, once I started really getting into it, I pretty much finished within the span of like 2 weeks. Even if it's a game that I have a hard time revisiting often because of how demanding it is. It's the kind of game where habits have to form before you can ever hope to perform. And if that's your style, or if you just want to explore a bug-infested world, you'd be hard-pressed to find a game more consistently engaging than Hollow Knight. Again, I'm feeling myself to a solid 9, depends on the day. Thanks for watching, and who else is ready to fucking skong? Who else is fucking ready to skong? Oh my god.